Hello YouTube, happy Halloween, and I am here to discuss the Halloween show of the season, Agatha All Along, which just aired its final two episodes last night. I've been thinking for weeks, oh, how fun would it be to get on here and discuss Agatha All Along, fresh on Halloween, because I've been having such a good time with this show. But now I'm not sure if I wanted to make this video anymore because I have some complicated thoughts after the finale. I've decided to come on here anyway and discuss it all because it's good to be honest in any way. I mean, this was my plan all along. Might as well stick with it. But I do have some positive thoughts about the show. I wasn't sure I could find them, but I do have some positives for sure. I think before getting into Agatha All Along, this is my first time discussing the MCU at all. So I'll give a little backstory on my history with the MCU. I've long been a comic book fan. I leaned more towards DC always, but I kept up with what Marvel was doing. The MCU came along. I wasn't really in it at all. I got in it around Iron Man 3, and I was a very casual viewer. I'd pop in here and there if something looked interesting to me. And then we got WandaVision, the show that came before Agatha All Along. They very much tie together. I was very excited for WandaVision, although I wasn't excited for the reasons of most people. I have always had an issue with the Scarlet Witch casting in the MCU. I think Elizabeth Olsen is a great actress, but in the comics, the Scarlet Witch is a Romani Jewish character, and I do not like the changes that were made in regards to the character. So I was more watching because I knew of Catherine Hahn and loved her, also mostly for Monica, honestly. But I was having a really good time with that show. It very much appealed to me. I love TV shows, if you can't tell. I mean, here I am on a YouTube channel discussing everything TV. So going through the sitcom styles, that was very appealing to me. Then we get to the finale, and I feel like that show just totally unraveled before my very eyes. I did get caught up in the theory world a bit for the show too, so I had that disappointment, but I also think the finale was just a mess in general. And that kind of led me to quit watching the MCU pretty much entirely. I did end up watching Loki for one reason or another, and I watched the Guardians of the Galaxy Christmas special and haven't got around to the movie, but it's just fully fallen off my to watch list because I was so bummed out by the end of WandaVision. But then I hear about this Agatha All Along show. It's going through the history of witches, and I have to check it out. Who doesn't love a good witch? It's all the girls and the gay. So it was right up my alley. I thought Agatha was the standout character of WandaVision for me personally. So yeah, here I am. We're at Agatha All Along now. So Agatha All Along, I click into episode 1. I'm a little nervous. I'm excited. But the first episode doesn't quite get me until the end of the episode. I didn't watch The Mayor of Easttown, so those references didn't really do anything for me, but I could see where the setup was going. But then by the end of episode 2, I was sold. We had the fabulous Down the Witch's Road song, which is just a Halloween classic now. I mean, we need more Halloween songs. I think that'll be on loop every year. I'll skip ahead to the finale, and we just gotta dive into the twists and the turns and the reveals. The big twist of the show are we had Billy, who is now Wiccan. He created the Witch's Road. He imagined it up based on all the lore that was going around it, and it's revealed that the song, the Down the Witch's Road song, that was created by Agatha with her son, and her son got taken by Death, who's played by the fantastic Aubrey Plaza. aka Rio. And Rio is Agatha's ex-girlfriend. On paper, I really, really like a lot of these reveals. Of course, I was a little bummed out that the Witch's Road isn't real because I like that it is a thing in the Marvel comics, but it's fine. We also get the ending of the show where Agatha comes back as a ghost and she is going to tag along with Billy to go find Tommy, who they saved together. So my main problem with Agatha All Along is this is a Wiccan show packaged as an Agatha show. I like Wiccan. I like how they did Wiccan in this, but he was not promoted as the main character of the show, and I feel like he got to succeed while Agatha died. And Agatha being a ghost is a thing in the comics. I like that storyline, but it just rubs me the wrong way to have the lead of the show about witches who are so female power. It ends with this strong witch dying and becoming the sidekick to a guy. He's a gay guy. Hello, I love the gays. But he is ultimately a guy, and we lose this girl's story to prop up a guy. If this was a Wiccan show, I wouldn't have this same issue because fine, give Agatha the sidekick treatment. But to make Agatha the sidekick and killing her off in her own show to be a sidekick to a guy, honestly, it's a little insulting. It feels like all the girls in the show, besides Death herself, died. Well, we do have Jennifer. I'm so happy she survived. But for a show that I think channels so much female empowerment, it just left a bad taste in my mouth. I wasn't necessarily disappointed with the story beats that were chosen to follow. I think it's just how they went about it. They could keep the same show, change the name to Billy All Along, and I would have been fine with it. Or they could have found a way to make Agatha's story less centered around men. They could have propped up her love story with Rio more. They had the kiss of death, which was an iconic moment, but it didn't really feel earned. We never got their backstory. Rio wasn't really in the show too much in the first place, honestly. I don't feel like it was an earned moment because we didn't get to see much of their relationship at all. I feel like looking back, Agatha's story, it's gonna be about her son and Billy. I feel like she got lost in her own story a little bit. And there's so many layers to Agatha. We know she's such a powerful witch and she's done so much throughout the years. It was nice to get to see her being the scam artist going through, or a businesswoman. She tricked these women into trying to go down the road and she stole their magic. That's iconic. But I wish we could have seen more of Agatha in her power. I feel like we didn't get to see her with powers all season. Then when she finally gets powers, she dies. Even in the final fight, Wiccan did most of the fighting. We saw Agatha drain power out of him. She had a little moment, but Wiccan came in for the save. Wiccan got to have more moments in the fight than Agatha did. I'll be blunt and say it. I feel like the easiest fix to this show was to give lesbians more screen time. Classic Disney. Classic Disney. The one time I would have been fine with burying the gays is when one of the gays is death itself, but they still found a way to make me feel like one of the gays didn't get the shine they deserved. Ultimately, I just think this show treated Agatha like a side character, and it's unfortunate that she was a side character in her own show. I guess she would be the main villain, but she didn't feel like the title character to me in her own show. It felt like I was watching the Wiccan show. Also, Agatha's final form as a ghost, it was her worst look of all her looks in the show. I think giving her the gray hair could be very cool. I just don't like the execution, and I feel like she was too see-through. I feel like she needed a bit more visibility. It was just a very unappealing look on screen, so in whichever project her and Billy appear in next. I hope they get that fixed up. But although I have my problems with the execution, I am excited to see what's next for Agatha and Billy. Now I think I'll go through character by character, and I'll start with Agatha. I mean, I already said pretty much everything I've got to say on Agatha, but she was an amazing businesswoman. She knew everything all along. She was behind the song, so she knew it was a scam. She was gonna kill all the witches this whole time, but then Billy opened up that door. She just went along with it. Everything makes sense in hindsight. Catherine Hahn is an amazing actress. She has some amazing comedic moments, but we also got to see some really good dramatic moments from Catherine too, especially between her and Death. They were amazing scene partners, and I really enjoyed the backstory with her and Nicholas. I would say this show mostly focused on highlighting the maternal side of Agatha. I wish we got to see some other sides of her. Like, I really want to see how she got the Darkhold in the first place. I would have loved to get more of her origin story before she had Nick. I would have loved to see more of her romance. The show's called Agatha All Along, but I just wanted more Agatha. This is such an interesting character with hundreds of years of history, and I feel like we still explored so little of it, even though we had a whole show around her. So it's just kind of disappointing. I'm happy with what we got. I just wanted more. Now on to Billy. I was apprehensive when the rumors started going around that Wiccan was gonna be in this show. Wiccan is a comic book character who I have enjoyed. I gotta support the gays, yes. But the execution of Wiccan here, while it outshined Agatha in her own show, I do like it, and I'm pleased with how it came out. My biggest apprehension was it being attached to the mess that is the Scarlet Witch in the MCU. But I think they did a good job of navigating that while also honoring Wiccan's comic book origin. Like, they gave him a Jewish family, so we're getting that Jewish heritage back into the lineage. I'd still love to get some Romani representation somewhere in the MCU, but for what it is, they handled this situation well. They did give Billy a boyfriend, and the few scenes that they did had, I thought they were really sweet. Again, why did his boyfriend, who's not really relevant to the story, get more screen time than Rio and Agatha did together? But whatever, I won't get stuck on that. One thing I've hated about gay characters over the years is if they make a character gay, they often just get stuck being the gay character. They don't get to be a character on their own. And I don't feel like Billy was that way. We got to see him in a variety of different situations. He referenced having a boyfriend, but he really got to be his own character. The parallels between him and the Scarlet Witch, they were good parallels. I've got my issues with that. I always will. But for what it is, I thought the parallels were very interesting, how they both handled their emotions and made these scenarios come to life. And Agatha pointing those out was fun too. Billy got Sharon, Alice, and Lilia killed. Agatha helped, but Billy got them killed, putting them in this situation in the first place. And I think that's an interesting complexity to give this hero. He's not a straight villain. He lives in a gray zone right now, and I think he'll become a great hero with time. But I think he lives in the in-between like Agatha now, and they have a fascinating dynamic. I like that they gave Wiccan some edge. I think a lot of times they're afraid to give characters edge, but I like an edgy character. I like a character who lives in the gray zone. I find that fascinating. Of course, Wiccan, an iconic hero. But for now, having him paired with Agatha, and they're both a little bit in the gray. Agatha leaning more towards villain, Wicked leaning more towards hero. That's a fascinating dynamic to explore. And then Billy also parallels Agatha's son, Nick. By the way, I think Agatha did bring back Nick in that last trial? I don't know. So, how would Billy and Nick interact? I feel like we're gonna have to see Nicholas Scratch pop up one of these days. Now, Wiccan's costume, I feel like they did a great job adapting it from the comics. I feel like it would pair well with the Scarlet Witch outfit, but it stands out on its own. It doesn't feel like every other costume. And his powers look really cool adapted this way. I really have no complaints about Billy Wiccan on his own. It's just how they fit into this show that's a little shaky for me. But overall, I think he's a good character to bring into the world of the MCU. Now I'll get into Rio, aka Death, and this is such a cool character. Her witch's laugh alone is enough to sell you. She nailed it. She absolutely nailed it. She didn't have many scenes, but she was very intimidating. I feel like she captured Death very well. Aubrey Plaza just knows how to chew the scenery, honestly. Every scene that she had, she leaves an impression. Well, I do think she didn't get enough material to work with. What she did have, she made herself a standout. And this show did a great job introducing Death into the MCU, and I'm sure this is a character that will have plenty to do moving forward, although, I don't know. The MCU is a mess right now, so who knows. I found it fascinating when Death came to take Nick as he was being birthed, and Agatha's plea not to take him let Death give a few more years. Agatha didn't know how much time there was going to be, which honestly, that's almost crueler than just taking him then. That really showed how much Death cares about Agatha. I wish we could have seen it, but that was a good display of their past romance that we didn't get to see play out in full. And then she came back for Nicholas Scratch, and she took him at night while Agatha was asleep. I think she did that because she didn't want Agatha to have her chance to swap places like she did with Wiccan. The small bits we got of Death, there's so much to pull from those, and I would say that's because a lot of what Aubrey Plaza brought to the role. I just wish she had more. Oh, what a good character. I'm excited to see where she pops up next. I hope I don't have to wait another 3 years to see the ramifications of this show unfold, because that is ridiculous. Now, I've saved my favorite survivor for last, and that is Jennifer Kale. Oh my gosh. She was a little bland at first, but the more I saw of Jennifer Kale, the more I really grew to like her. And by the end of the show, I was like, please let Jennifer survive. I cannot lose her. She especially won me over in episode 7 when we see her bonding with Lilia, and we got to see the impact of her growth, where at first she was running out of the trials before anybody. This time she wanted to stay in there and take Lilia's place. Jennifer Kale is the future of witches, and I need to see her in another project immediately. She got her power back. It was revealed that Agatha is the one who bound her. I wish we could have seen her confront Agatha and Billy, but oh well. Oh well, why would I expect something like that to happen in a show? But we see Jennifer come out of the road, the sole survivor of the road, and she jets off with her pink powers, and I hope she has a bright future ahead of her. Just a fantastic character, and I think it would be great to see what she does moving forward. The High Priestess, what's not to love? Now, we did lose a few characters along the way. I guess this would be Lilia, Alice, and Agatha. Sorry, Sharon, you're not a witch. Well, before I get into them, I will briefly touch on the Salem 7. I'll give them about as much time as the show gave them. What a waste. Their ultimate demise by the hands of Lilia was iconic, but this show lacked action overall. It lacked giving Agatha action. It would have been nice to see the witches have a little fight scene with the Salem Seven instead of just running from them the whole time before they ultimately got defeated by Lilia. But I do love the ending that they had, and I think their death scene is one of the most breathtaking scenes I've ever seen of anything, where Lilia turned the tower. Oh, I'll get into Lilia in a minute. You know what? I'll get into Lilia now. Lilia, episode 7, that was hands down the best episode of Agatha all along. I wasn't sure what Lilia was doing this whole time. I figured her lines, we'd see them pop up later on. I assumed she was doing some time hopping, but we get that confirmation. And this episode 7 follows Lilia as she hops through time. She doesn't live on the straight timeline. She lives throughout time, hopping through it, back and forth. It was confusing at first following that episode, but as we get onto it, it makes more and more sense. So it starts off, we're like as confused as Lilia is, like, what's going on? Why am I here? Why am I there? But the pieces come together in such a masterful way, and she definitely had the most satisfying death of the show. It was tragic, it was beautiful, she got to sacrifice herself. When she said, I loved being a witch, my heart like fell out of my chest. Oh, I didn't want to lose Lilia. Oh. But even at the end, she found her coven where she belongs, and she got to sacrifice herself. So it really all came full circle, and Lily got such a satisfying ending. And I guess it's not the ending for her, because she's gonna live her life for the rest of eternity. Now she just has all the answers. So I guess it's both beautiful and tragic. I just think, wow, just masterclass of storytelling that episode 7 was. Lilia's bond with Jennifer, that felt like true witch camaraderie, and I wish we saw a bit more of that throughout the show, but that moment alone is like, this is what being in a coven's like. It was so just what a chemistry those two had as characters. Now Alice, she felt like the most incomplete character, but that was the point. I love the scene in episode 8 where we flash back to Alice's death, and she comes face to face with death herself, and she's like, but I just got free of all this baggage I had. My story has just begun. And death is like, oh, that's how it is for so many. And just is like, whatever, you're not special. And it was just like, wow, that Alice truly just captures how devastating death can be. And Alice herself, how we got so connected to her through her time on the show, but lose her right as she really finds her own. Oh, it's just devastating. But ultimately, Alice was a sacrifice to introduce the character of Death. I love Alice. She's fantastic. Doing this to introduce Death, just fantastic. I was thinking wasted potential when Alice first died, but episode 8 is when I was like, oh no, this just really was here to show how powerful death is. Death is permanent, death is frustrating, it's all of those things. So Alice will be missed, but her death did mean something. Now, I think the one death that just still rubs me the wrong way a little bit is the death of Sharon Davis, or as some would know her, Mrs. Hart. She was my standout character of this show. The first few episodes, I was team Sharon. I was pulling for her all the way. She better make it to the end of the road. No, she's down at the first trial. I think she had a pretty sad death. She didn't get to do much before she died, and she died in such a stupid way too. It's like, these girls could not have just gone over and given her some of the potion, or oh, it just felt like they could have done so much more, and it's frustrating. I think they really just wanted to have Sharon there as comedic relief, and they were even doing comedic jabs at her and her death. which they were funny. A lot of the Agatha wondering like, who is she? Those jokes were funny, but we did get to see Sharon. She was trapped in Wanda's illusion in WandaVision. Sharon's character went through a lot of trauma, and I feel like just writing her off as the comedic character, it was a little unfortunate. I wish we could have had more of Sharon, but I'm glad we got what we did of Sharon, and her legacy will forever live on. What an iconic character. She left her mark on this show, even though she was the first kill. I think I've really said all I can say about Agatha all along for now. I'm sure there's so much more to be said about it, but I don't know. It's very complicated feelings about Agatha all along. I think it's a show that I had a lot of fun with. It didn't quite stick the landing, but I think I'll be able to appreciate the show in hindsight, and I think maybe I will be looking forward to seeing what follows it moving forward. I might go and check out some of the MCU projects I missed. I don't know. Maybe I'm back in, maybe not. I'll at least check in to see what happens next with Agatha and Jennifer Kale and Death. And Wigan. That's all I can say for sure. I need to see what happens with those characters. Well, hey, if there's any MCU projects I need to go back for that I've missed the past few years, let me know in the comments. If I think of anything else to say on it, maybe I'll be back. I don't know. Well, until next time, happy Halloween. Bye.